Hi everyone, this is Catherine Brunel, a newly elected town meeting member for Precinct 9. That means that I have a lot to learn, and so I dug in and did some research and would like to share it with you in this short video. So what does it look like, this local form of government? Well, town meeting is the legislative branch. The elections happen every spring, and I highly encourage anyone that's interested in getting involved in town meeting to think about that. In Natick, we have 10 precincts and 18 people in each precinct that are elected to form a 180 representative town meeting member body. There are some towns in Massachusetts that have an open town meeting, which means anyone can go. For us, we actually elect our people to go to this town meeting. Once those elections happen and town meeting takes place, we need at least 91 of those people to show up in order to hold the meeting and have the votes. What are we voting on? Typically, we're voting on the money, the taxpayer that we collect from taxpayers and figure out how to allocate it, and we're voting on bylaws, or a fancy way to say local laws. Are there other branches in Natick? Of course. The executive branch could be considered people like the select board, the school committee, and the planning board, all policy building committees, all volunteers, in addition to the town administrator and the superintendent. And the way the executive branch interacts with the legislative branch is that it makes requests of the town meeting members to make decisions for the town through the town meeting. Now, these town meetings typically happen in the spring and in the fall. In the spring, we're typically dealing with budgets and money, and in the fall, we're dealing with zoning and free cash. That's a term you're going to want to look up and understand more about. It's especially important this year. Town meetings get called by our select board members. I'm missing one of my select board members. Bring him over. So this select board calls the town meeting, and they do that by approving what is called the warrant. And the warrant is basically an agenda. There's lots of dictates about where the warrant has to be posted, but basically it's the time, the place, the date, and then what's going to happen at those town meetings. The select board then also interacts with town meeting by sometimes calling a special town meeting. And those get called when something comes up that cannot wait for an already scheduled spring or fall town meeting. Interestingly, we are going to see a special town meeting happen this fall so that we can get all of the money dealt with that we were not able to deal with back in the spring. If you remember, the spring town meeting actually happened in July, and because of COVID, we've been waiting to find out numbers about the state aid and the local receipts. And because of that, we are going to call, or a special town meeting has been called so that we can figure out this money and then move into the typical articles that happen in the fall town meeting. First, we have the moderator. This person is an elected position for 3 years and is in charge of regulating or presiding over the town meeting. Basically, it is the town moderator's job to understand all parliamentary proceedings and to put all things to vote that are on the warrant. It's also important to note that this moderator appoints this body up here that I'll get to in just a bit, called the Finance Committee. And they have a role in the town meeting as well. In addition to the moderator, the town clerk is there to help and is charged to record all the votes and minutes of the town meeting. And in the case of the moderator's absence, the town clerk will serve in that role. The town clerk does other things for our town, but for town meeting, that is her charge. Town council is there working before town meeting to make sure that everything is legally sound on the warrant. And that's important because anything that gets passed by town meeting will end up at the Attorney General's office for the state of Massachusetts. And that has to be approved, so we have to make sure that everything is legally okay. The town council is also there to answer questions during town meeting that might come up. And in addition, we have this team town meeting. People that the town moderator invites in to help pages, oftentimes high schoolers that are running the microphone to different places. We have tellers and checkers, people that help run the town meeting logistically. It's also important to note that, I'm just going to reuse my Lego guys here. There's some VIP seating in that we have we have town employees who come to the town meeting to answer questions. So the town administrator in her town and her team, the superintendent, and the department heads are there. It's an incredible amount of time that they spend trying to help our town meeting members make the best decision by answering questions that they receive. They are volunteers. They are appointed by the town moderator. And before any of our town meetings, they hold public hearings on all of the articles. That means that they ask questions, they debate, and they open up the floor for the public to enter the conversation about what is going to happen at town meeting. After the debate, they then vote on all of the budgetary and non-budgetary articles, and eventually create a recommendation book for town meeting members. We also have the planning board that gives some input to town meeting, and they give input, of course, on anything that has to do with land use in the town. So much like the finance committee, the planning board is going to hold public hearings. They will vote on all of the articles that relate to zoning, and then they will submit something to town meeting members to help explain the things we're voting on. So once you walk in the door, no matter if you are a select board member or a finance committee member, you are now either a member of the public or a town meeting member if you've been elected. All of those other responsibilities fall to the wayside, and town meeting takes place with the moderator calling the meeting to order. And of course, again, we use the warrant. On the warrant, there are all of the articles that will be discussed. The way it's been described to me is that the articles create the four corners or the playing field, and the motions are what happens on that field. So the motions are actually what we vote on at town meeting. After an article is read, a town meeting member can make a motion on it, and then it needs to be seconded by another town meeting member. Once a motion is seconded, we go into debate. And it's really important to say here that anyone, town meeting member or citizen, resident of Natick, can speak during town meeting about these articles and motions. The decorum in debate, there's a lot about that, but it basically is trying to make sure that everyone remembers that we're neighbors at the end of the day, and we are wanting to get out of town meeting before Thanksgiving, so there's a time limit given to people to speak and how many times they can speak. When the town moderator sees that there's less than 3 people who want to speak on an article, 3 new people that want to speak, the town moderator can then call for a vote. And at that point, depending on the type of article it is, you either need a majority or a 2/3 vote in some cases for the motion to be adopted. If it does not receive those things, then the motion is defeated. And then we go back up to other motions. Articles can have several motions. The same article can have several motions underneath it. And motions can happen to amend the article, to refer the article, to postpone the article. I encourage you, if you're interested, to look up all of those things. But hopefully this has given you a quick overview of what happens at town meeting.